Primetime Deion Sanders says, give me my theme music. On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, we're going to be talking a little New York Football Jets, a team that has been in the news, to say the very least, in the last year or so, ever since they acquired Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers last spring. Of course, last season did not even come close to his plan. Aaron tearing his Achilles, only 4 snaps into the football season. And one of the bigger issues that have plagued the Jets has been the fact that they had one of the worst offensive lines in football. Well, to their credit, they've gotten 2 guys, albeit up there in age, Moses and Tyron Smith. Morgan Moses, I believe is the guy's name, and Tyron Smith. They also added the other day Mike Williams, who was released by the Chargers, 29 years old, dealing with a lot of injuries with LA. But when he's on the field, absolute beast, playmaker, matchup nightmare, particularly down the red zone. He's about 6'4", 6'5". And listen, Aaron has been great with jump ball guys in his career. Devontae Adams comes to mind right off the bat. And so I think in that regard, the fit between Mike Williams, if he's able to stay healthy, and Aaron Rodgers will work quite well. You add that to a defense that has Sauce Gardner, that has Quinnen Williams, that has a lot of special playmakers on that side of the ball, an offense that already had Breece Hall, that already had Garrett Wilson. So offense got better. Offensive line, the biggest weakness of the football team in particular, got a lot better. So from that standpoint, the acquisitions by themselves, we're just talking specifically about those, love them. Jets receiving core was not as good as many people give it credit for. That's why Randall Cobb barely got any snaps at all last season. Alan Lazard was getting healthy scratches toward the end of the year. The Jets receiving core was not good outside of Garrett Wilson. When I have Garrett Wilson, you have Mike Williams. I anticipate they could maybe potentially go get a receiver in the draft this year. I still wouldn't be against them drafting another offensive lineman because, again, Smith and Moses are getting up there in age, kind of bringing a younger guy to kind of, be a mentor or be mentored by Smith and Moses. As for the Jets, though, in terms of my outlook for them coming into 2024, hadn't changed. Yes, the offensive lines got better, but both Smith and Moses, in particular Tyron Smith, has dealt with injuries. And once you get on the right side of 30, you don't exactly get healthier as time passes. Generally speaking, when we talk about, forget Super Bowl contenders because the Jets obviously are not one. When we talk about playoff contenders, we think about teams that have great quarterbacks. Well, the Jets, in theory, have one. More on that a little later. And we certainly think about head coaches. We think about the Ravens. We think about Lamar and John Harbaugh. We think about the Chiefs, of course, the standard in the NFL right now. We think about Mahomes. We think about Andy Reid. We think about Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor's not in the level of those guys, but still is a good head coach. I hold, D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, as well as Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson in higher regard than most, but we can debate that another day. Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, 8th greatest combo ever. But when we talk about, let's just back up from those two. Because I've said often, one of my sayings on Carving Up Live is, it's a quarterback's league. To a certain degree, though, it's a quarterback/offensive play callers league. Because I hear all the time, you need to have an offensive head coach. Well, not necessarily if you have a good offensive play caller. So the Patriots showed us that for years with Josh McDaniels with Brady. McDaniels, for as bad as he was the head coach, not a terrible OC. Teamed up, of course, with the greatest quarterback ever, Tom Brady. So we think about offensive play callers. Well, the Jets offensive play caller, you would think maintaining continuity from having the same guy from a year ago would work wonders. Roll the tape. Not really the tape. Let's look at how Nathaniel Hackett offensive coordinator for the Jets. Let's see how they fared in terms of scoring points. And that's kind of the point of playing football or really any team sport. Buffalo Bills in 2013 ranked 22nd in scoring under Nat Hackett. The 2014 Bills ranked 18th. 2016 Jaguars ranked 25th. 2017 Jaguars ranked 5th, like top 5 in the NFL. And then they plummeted down to second to last, 31st in 2018 when Hackett got fired. He got hired by the Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur when the Packers had the 15th, 1st, and 10th best offenses between the years 2019 and 2021. Here's the problem, and as you could see on that stat right there, Nathaniel Hackett didn't call plays. Matt LaFleur did. So He calls plays in Denver in 2022 as the head coach. They were quite literally the worst offense known to man, and Nathaniel Hackett did not even survive an entire season with the Broncos. And the Jets last season, with Garrett Wilson, with Breece Hall, had the fourth worst offense in all of football in terms of points per game. Well, maybe you can overcome that, though, if you've got a good head coach. Well, Robert Saleh, for whatever some may think of him, is objectively not a good, I don't know if he's a bad head coach. He's certainly not a good one. And we could show you, you want to be playing your best football in December and January, going into the playoffs, a stretch run. The Jets, under Robert Saleh, play easily their worst football in December and January. We can show you right here. Since Robert Saleh has been with the Jets, they're 4-14. That's their record. Their point differential is negative 122. They score 15.5 points per game, and they have a turnover differential of minus 12. All of those stats rank dead last in the NFL. So basically, the Jets are the worst team in football at the end of the season when Robert Saleh is the head coach. Take with that what you will. The Jets defense, to his credit, is good. But basically, at the end of the season, they don't score points. They don't take the ball away. They get blown out. Not great. Not saying Robert Saleh's a bad coach. Not saying he's, Nathaniel Hackett. But I am also not in any way making the case he's even a good coach. Like, let's say the level of, I have questions about Mike McCarthy. I think he's a good coach. He's not a great coach. He's not to the level of like a Stefanski. Like, I think Stefanski's a great coach. Or an Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin, Sean McVay. So maybe you can overcome that, though, if you have a great quarterback. I mean, we've seen quarterbacks many, many times overcome average to below average coaching. We don't love Zach Taylor. Joe Burrow got him to a Super Bowl. We didn't love Mike McCarthy for years in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers got him to one. We don't love a lot of coaches who have success in the playoffs because they have all-time great talents at the quarterback position. Even Belichick, hindsight, we look back, he has 90% Brady. And Belichick, without Brady, has a losing record and has done basically nothing in the playoffs. He has one playoff win without the GOAT. So maybe a great quarterback can overcome that. Here's the problem. The Jets don't have one. Aaron Rodgers is objectively a good quarterback, bordering on average. Check Aaron Rodgers' stats. Aaron Rodgers' last 300-yard passing game. And we think about a guy who's won 4 league MVPs, has a Super Bowl title. We think he's had many of those, and he has. Last 300-yard passing game was in week 13 of 2021. So a year and a half ago. He's played 22 games since then. We're not going to count the Jets game when he only played 4 snaps. We're not, because that wouldn't be fair. He played 4 snaps. We're not going to count that. So basically, his last 22 games as a Green Bay Packer. Aaron Rodgers. Let's look at this. 36 touchdowns, 12 picks, completes about 66% of his passes, pass rating of 96, pass yards per game about 218.9, pretty good. But he's 11-11. He has no 300-yard pass games and, of course, has no playoff wins. It's not a bad stat line. We could put it up one more time. Again, 36 touchdowns, 12 picks. It's not awful. Again, break it down. That would be about a 9-3 touchdown interception. 3-1 touchdown interception ratio. Pass yards per game, 218. Not bad. Not bad. I want to show a stat, though, that's going to blow your socks off. Last 22 games. So again, we're not counting the Jets game that he played in when he tore his Achilles. Last 22 games as a Packer. Let's compare those last 22 games to another quarterback that some, even despite a good season last year, are quite skeptical on. Okay? For the podcast audience, I'll read it off for you. For the YouTube, Twitter audience, you can see it right there. Those numbers are basically identical. Both of these guys, you see Aaron Rodgers stats, you see a mystery player stats, right? Last 22 games, this is. Both have 36 touchdowns. Aaron has 1 fewer pick. Aaron completes slightly more % of his passes. A player in question throws for about 20 more yards per game. They both have a passer rating. Aaron's is 96. The other guy is 95. Both are 11-11, but the mystery player has 5 300-yard passing games to Aaron's 0 and has 1 playoff win to Aaron's 0. Who is the player in question? We will reveal it to you right now. This blind reveal and carving it up. It is Baker Mayfield. So Aaron Rodgers, the guy who's going to lift the Jets to incredible heights, is Baker Mayfield. Now, to Baker's credit, we know had an excellent season last year that resulted in him getting a 3-year, $100 million contract. And it is worth every penny in terms of what he did for the Bucs last year and what he's capable of doing with those weapons in the future. But Baker Mayfield, again, a few of those starts, we were factoring all the numbers here, was with the Rams, who signed him a week prior to his second Rams start, which is where the 22 games begin for Baker. He was, again, signed by the Rams, had like 2 seconds still in the playbook, won that game against Vegas. Christmas Day, played excellent, and then had some duds against Seattle and Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers is Baker Mayfield, and that's who he is. Aaron is not a top 10 quarterback. He's simply not. He's no longer productive, no longer a playoff performer. And let's be honest, for a guy that literally came into the offseason saying we need less distractions, has been the biggest distraction in the National Football League. The news reports are countless, most notably that he was on the short list being considered for a vice presidential candidate with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the independent nominee. Oh, by the way, according to reports that, given Aaron's history of conspiracy theories, aren't that nuts, he doesn't think a national tragedy in 2012 happened. So we talk about not needing distractions. We talk about still being elite. He's neither. He's the biggest distraction in football and will continue to be until the day he retires. Again, the fact that he was even on the list for RFK either shows RFK isn't a serious candidate, which that's probably not the case, or probably is the case rather. Or Aaron Rodgers isn't that committed to football anymore. And even when he was, he's a good quarterback who's no longer elite. By the way, wasn't able to get the graphic here, but Aaron Rodgers' stats in the last 22 games are slightly better than Russell Wilson, who nobody thinks is good anymore. I think he's productive. I don't think he's elite anymore, but basically the same guy. So you're telling me the OC is absolutely horrible. The head coach doesn't win games when they absolutely matter the most. And the quarterback is no longer elite. And by the way, you're paying him like he is elite. Those offseason moves, Mike Williams, Morgan Moses, I believe is the guy's name, and Tyron Smith, they're good. They make the team better. But do I feel any different about the Jets today than I did 2 months ago? No. Because the most important factors in terms of being a playoff contender, the best one, Aaron Rodgers, on a good day, is a B-. Hackett's an absolute F as an OC. On a good day, Robert Saleh's a D+. That's the reality of the New York Jets. This is the hole that they've dug themselves into with this quarterback. I don't see them getting more than 8 wins in 2024. So for carving up the context, don't overreact too much to the Jets' offseason moves. They're in the same position now as they were a couple weeks ago. An average football team. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.